Depression, anxiety, an illness, loss of a job, a pandemic, death in the family, all sound like absolutely horrible things, right? Okay, not gonna lie, they are horrible things. However, sometimes they can serve as an impetus for change. I'm Melissa, and today I talk to Joe Iadanza. He is a meditation teacher, a yogi, a Reiki healer, a preacher, a teacher of A Course in Miracles, and lots of other stuff too. Very big business card. Today we talk about how life's upsets and tragedies can actually, in some ways, be the start of your spiritual awakening. Joe, do I have to call you Joe or can I call you Joey?
They call me anything you like. Joey.
Joey was my first roommate when I graduated college, and we actually haven't seen or spoken to each other in probably 2 decades. So
Yeah.
I had kind of no idea what path your life took, and nor did you really mine. And we just reconnected, and ironically, very, very similar. So Joey Joe Iadanza is a meditation teacher. He's a spiritual director. He's a retreat leader. He is an interfaith minister. He's a Reiki Master teacher.
I am on the board of a nonprofit called United We Om, and we bring yoga and meditation to trauma-impacted, at-risk communities. And I was a founding board member of that organization and at unitedweom.org, and so check it out.
We're going to talk about that.
Work.
So we're going to break down the interview. The first thing we're going to talk about is sort of how you got into all of this energy work. Let's start first things first. When we went our separate ways so many years ago, I don't think either of us was so much into this at all. Truthfully,
not at all.
We were to beer and rock and roll, and So how did you get into energy work, and how did you get on this path?
I got a nervous breakdown.
Me too.
It was exactly that. It really, literally was.
No, I understand.
I think so many of us. I don't think people come to this very frequently, except through their own suffering.
Exactly, it's the dark night of the soul. Every person I speak to, I speak to light workers and energy workers, and I always ask because I'm curious. Yeah. And there's always some pivotal, dramatic changing point that strips away everything you thought you were and shows you who you really are. So let's talk about that.
So 2001, right around 9/11, I was working for a startup company, a startup tech sort of music media company, and we were creating CD burning kiosks to make custom records, because at the time you couldn't get that. You couldn't get that kind of thing.
Was it like the Flintstones? Was there like a bird pressing into the CD?
Yes, exactly. We were putting these things in Barnes and Noble bookstores, at college bookstores. Like we were like targeting kids. Anyway, so we had this whole cool thing we thought we were creating, and I was working with some really cool industry folks. And we started putting these things. We made the deals for the licensing, and then like about a month after we thought we had everything together, this thing called an iPod came out. And just destroyed our whole business model like overnight. And right around that time too, 9/11 happened, and so I'm part of this startup, and that falls apart, and now I'm like in total mess because
who am I? What am I doing? What's my purpose?
I have no money because the company I was working for owes me like a lot of money, and I've been, of course, lying to everybody and saying everything's great and charging my whole life onto my credit cards because I'm sure that check is going to come any day now. Yeah, and
the story hurts just listening to it. Oh my god! Oh.
I just crumbled. I completely crumbled. I started getting tunnel vision. I started getting terrible anxiety. And a couple of things happened around that time. Some people in my life encouraged me to go talk to their psychopharmacologists. Mm-hmm. And I went there, and I don't have a problem with that at all for anybody. But at the same time, for me, it just didn't feel right. And this guy met me, and he wanted to medicate me right away. And so but there's some part of me that just didn't feel that was what I wanted. And that in that same little week period where all this was starting to happen, a friend of mine connected me with somebody who was a psychic, actually. I had and months earlier had said that they had seen this psychic, and when I thought it was kind of cool, I wasn't really totally interested, but I said, oh, but if they're ever in town, let me know. I'll go see them. And of
Thinking
course,
that they're never ever going to be in town, right?
Exactly. And so that next day, after I literally see this neuropharmacologist, the next day I get a call from my stepmom who's like, oh, that person's in town and she had one appointment and I made the appointment for you. And I'm like on Valium because I'm just trying to
and that
get
was your
life.
Introduction to the universe working, my friend.
Exactly. Totally. So I dragged my half stoned ass into the city, and I sat with this woman who looked at me and she said, she was from Arizona. Of course she was from Sedona, like everybody who's psychic is. And she looked at me and she goes, You're going to be dead in 6 months if you don't change what you're doing. And not even the universe is here.
She didn't even count
you're going to be dead in 6 months if you change. And she's like, you're supposed to be playing music. You're supposed to be doing this and this. And then she doesn't know me from anything. And it was just it was such a moment. I was holding these two things. I was holding this one path and this other path. And so I went home and I laid there on the ground and I was like, please help me. I think it was the first time that I really meant it. Kill me now, or let's get out of this. And a whole bunch of things happened in this series that just started me, yoga, meditation, all these things. I dove in.
Listen, we all do the best we can with what we know when we were raised to believe a certain way. And it really takes a sort of stripping everything away.
Yeah.
I have this conversation often. I actually think we really do innately all have the answers in us, but it's buried under so much crap from society and from advertising and from family and from our own insecurities and from our ego that it's a matter of sort of undoing everything and then being able to sort of tap into this other energy work.
It's challenging on a lot of levels because I look at it from a split mind perspective. You have the part of your mind that's dysfunctional and the part of your mind that's still connected to the truth of what you are. And that part of your mind that is disconnected, that is dysfunctional, the egoic side of your mind, doesn't understand union. It doesn't understand peace. It understands breaking things into tons of little pieces and analyzing them. That's its job, and it does not want you because it can't comprehend what you're even looking for. It's well, what are you looking? What do you mean one? Here's one. Here's two. Here's three. You got lots. Why do you need one? You can have all this. And your brain the other part of your brain is oh no, come, sweetheart, come back to me. Come back to
and
me.
The ego part is saying, don't change. I don't want you to change. I'm trying to save my own life here. And you changing, even though it might be healthy or for you, whoever you are, is threatening to me. So I'm going to do everything in my power to make you not change.
And the paradox of that is that it's changing constantly. I mean, there's not a single moment where your ego is not throwing you in a different direction.
Yeah, it's so it's so much, and it's
it's so the 10,000 things, as they often say.
It's crazy, and I just you sort of had your epiphany way before I did. So I just think of how long I was walking around not knowing this. And then once I started knowing this stuff, then I went through a brief period of sort of regret and shame for having been unawakened for so long. And then I'm like, okay, you're doing more of the same if you waste a second more on that. So before we move on to the next segment, give out your Instagram and give out your webpage and all that information and talk a little bit about what you do with the Living Room Studios.
All right, so the Living Room Studio was a physical location for a long time. I had a small studio in Port Washington where I would host small workshops and do one-on-one work with people. I moved out of that studio a few years ago. Now I go visit studios. So the living room becomes kind of a
metaphor.
A metaphor, exactly. And I actually work out of my home.
Well, we all do now, so.
Who
doesn't? You think you're special? You're not.
I was doing that before it was cool,
I was making a kiosk of CD burners before it was cool. Oh, wait, that was never cool. So
it
close,
really
though.
Wasn't. It's okay.
We can laugh now, right?
We can laugh now. I mean, I can think about what my hair used to look like and the clothes I used to wear.
Don't even go there with me. Okay, so talk about the living room studio.
Yep. So the living room studio, and so for it's livingroomstudio.org. It's also the living room NY on Instagram, and you could from the main website you can find all the other links as well. So what it has become is a place where I post a podcast. I have a meditation podcast that goes out, and there are like 15 to 20-minute meditations that are guided, that help to kind of connect you to that deeper knowing that you were talking about. It's meant to kind of activate that energy. So I do that there. I see clients one-on-one. I teach A Course in Miracles, which is something I've been studying since 2005 or 6.
I give you credit for that because I tried. Unfortunately, that was sort of my first putting my toe in the water, and then my toe was in the water, and then I ran as far away from the water. That's not where you begin. Like, generally speaking. Yeah, that was, so maybe I'll reconvene on that someday, maybe with you, but that was like my first thing, and I was like, ah! And there was no way I was going there. So
it's a big challenging it's a very challenging teaching. Like I started my teachings. The first things I got to that started to give me some information about myself were very, very worldly and practical, like Tony Robbins, like those kind of like teachings like would move me through. And then it went to
Louise Hay. Like I had to start with, even Eckhart Tolle initially was a little too. I just recently revisited an Eckhart Tolle book that I had tried to read maybe 15 years ago and made no sense to me at the time, and now I get it. But, you kind of have to sort of work your way up to what's manageable initially. It's sort of baby steps to...
Exactly. Yeah. It's a ever-deepening process, and you just don't finish it. And that's okay, because as you get deeper and deeper into it, it just gets more joyful.
Subscribe to the blog, amaximizelife.com, on Instagram, a.maximize.life, on Twitter, amaximizelife, and on YouTube, amaximizelife. 2 X's. Talk to you soon.